Is it easy to put a e-bike kit on a bike with Hollowtech 2 bottom bracket? No, it's very difficult because of the pedal assist sensor fitting it to the bottom bracket. The traditional bottom bracket is a square taper type, and that has a gap there, and then you can fit a disc on that side or whatever. But on Hollowtech 2 there's no gap, so you have to put a 64mm disc on there, and that's if you get anywhere to put it on a road bike anyway, because it means you probably need one of the rings here to have very few teeth, you know, like 20 teeth, 26 teeth, or maybe be triple ringed. Most of us that have road bike, you know, gearing probably have a double ring or something like that, maybe even a single now. But that disc needs to be 64mm. I mean, this is like 100mm, even more. There's nothing to put the disc onto. Everything else is just as easy as a square taper bottom bracket bike, but the problem is the bike market's designed for square taper at the moment, but that's going to change because Shimano's newer gear sets for bikes is Hollowtech 2, so I think a lot more are going to have this problem. This is the pass pedal assist sensor which came with Yossi Power, which I think is a good kit by the looks of it. I've not actually done this bike yet though, just by the looks. But if this was a square taper it would have just fit in there. It would have been really easy, way out of the way of the disc and all that. And I think this is a new one-piece type. It doesn't even have a, you know, you don't need a receiver sensor. Whereas for Hollowtech 2 they tell you to buy one. You can buy it from them or just somewhere else. But you've got to put a disc on your crankset and you've got your thing there. But even that, I had to hammer that away. With hindsight, I'm not sure I needed to, but it felt like it at the time. But the big problem is finding, this is a 64mm disc, finding something that it fits, finding a crankset that it fits. So what are your options for an e-bike kit to fit Hollowtech 2? Well, it's the pedal assist sensor that's the problem. So if you go for that discing, you would really probably need to buy most people need to buy a new crankset, Hollowtech 2, and you'll need to make sure that it's got 64mm BCD or 74mm with the adapter that it comes with. So 74mm is probably where most people, that's what I found. But it was very hard to get this. I got this in Germany because 3 rings are nearly obsolete for Shimano road bikes now. It was £100. Option 2, replace the Hollowtech 2 with a square taper type. I would say that's probably the easiest thing to do. I think you'll need to buy a crankset again, but you could buy any type as long as it's square taper. So you could do that. Don't know how much that would cost, maybe like £100 all in maybe, or probably less. Option 3, get a bike with a square taper bottom bracket, you know, like Decathlon. Their entry range are like £250. As long as it's got a square taper bottom bracket, you know, that might be your cheapest and easiest option really. So you can fit an e-bike kit to a Hollowtech 2 bike, but you need to put a disc thing on your crankset. You need to make sure it fits. That's probably the hard bit. And mine was rubbing, but I put a spacer on it. And so it was all just problems. Everything else was just the same as any other bike, you know, it was easy. I would have had this all done in half a day if it wasn't for the pedal assist sensor. And I needed one spacer on that side, 2.5mm, to get the sort of the pedal assist sensor, the ring thing away from rubbing against the disc. You can get these on eBay. Apparently on mountain bikes they're fairly common, but road bikes you don't get them with a crankset, I don't think. So you probably need to buy your own. 2.5mm, 68mm for this one. It'll say on your bottom bracket. Actually, it might not, I can't remember. I don't remember seeing 68mm. I did see because I think that's the width of what it's going through there, but that's all 1.37 inch times something, which I think is the diameter across here or something. Where is that, 68mm, I think it was to do with that. Oh yeah, the battery's upside down, that's the only way I could fit it, but it fit okay, it was too close down there. I've also bought a bracket, which means I can fit it further up, but I'm just going to try that just now. I've seen somebody else do this. There's a disc there, 64mm bolt circle diameter, or 74mm, and 5 ring, 5 bolt, if that's what I've went for, the adapter. So you've got two chances of bolt circle diameter, 64mm or 74mm. 74mm is 5 bolts, 64mm is 4 bolts, I think. So if you want that disc to fit, and that's the only way I know how to do it at the moment, you'll need to go for 64mm or 74mm bolt circle diameter crank set. That's the main point of the video, I suppose. 64mm, 74mm bolt circle diameter. So this is what it's all about. The big problem, you've got to have a crankset that'll go into. It's magnetic, it just sticks on an adapter. Plus it comes with an adapter. This is what Yossi Power suggested. I got it off eBay. King meter, half disc 64. The adapter, KM74C. Even though that's only 4 bolts, it leaves 1 bolt blank, and it does say it's for 5 bolts. Maybe 74mm BCD are always 5 bolt, I don't know. Plus the receiver thing was a nuisance as well. I hammered mine back. With hindsight, I'm not sure I had to, but I think I did. But I think my main problem was that the ring that I put on, you know, to put the receiver on, sticks out a bit, and maybe that was rubbing against the disc, because it looks like that's been rubbing against something. Something was rubbing. I don't know if it was disc, but something was, because the pedal was slowing down, you know, only a bit. So after all that, I had a bit of rubbing, and then finally somebody suggested get a spacer, which I'd never heard of for this. And that's what solved it completely for me. So that's me, I've got an e-bike now, and but it's taken months. It's taken months, you know. I had to buy lots of parts, wrong parts, but yeah, if I was doing it again, I would just get a square taper bottom bracket, take that all out, make it square taper, and you'd need to buy a crankset as well, probably. Yeah, you would. It looks okay with the spacer, but I haven't actually pedalled it yet. I suppose with the spacer it means this side will stick out a bit more, you know, but it looks okay to me. At least it's easy to fit on because of that gap, you know, they just sort of fit on. So that's 74mm, 5 bolt, and then this it's magnetic, so it just sort of clings on. I think is that the right way? I think I was doing it the wrong way. Yeah, there we go. Oh. Like that, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, there we go, yeah, it's fitted. At least something was straightforward. So this feels like something's a bit of friction, but I'll sort that out. Probably too tight or something. Yeah, something was rubbing here, so I think it may have been this ring, which could have filed down, I suppose, but it's better just putting a spacer in, you know, I think. So, can you put a e-bike kit on a Hollowtech 2 bike? Hollowtech 2 bottom bracket. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But it's very awkward and expensive because of this. Better to get a square taper bottom bracket type bike, you know, the more common for now, and because they're even down to 1 piece for these. So, and I'm sure these will get even simpler. I bought a clip-on receiver for this, you know, which I thought I would put on here, which it did, but electronically it wasn't compatible, so I didn't get anything out of it. So I had to go back in that and give it a hammering. Like I say, Shimano grip sets, they're doing away with Tiagra, I think even Sora maybe. A lot, the low end ones, and so far they're replacing them with Shimano Q's, Cues grip set. And so far, all the ones I've seen have been Hollowtech too. So it looks like this may be a future problem, but hopefully that means they'll come up with a future answer. Maybe they'll do something like you don't need a disc, you know, maybe just a sensor here, something like that, you know. They'll need to do something anyway. Okay guys, it can be done, but I don't know if it's worth it, alright. In summary, one, replace this with a square taper bracket, but you'll need a crankset as well. Two, do what I've done here, get a Hollowtech 2 crankset that has a 64 or 74 millimetre bolt circle diameter, and then you can fit that thing, hopefully. Or three, just buy a bike with a square taper bracket, you know. So my plea to Shimano is, help me, help us, help everyone with your new Shimano Q's. Make some sort of pedal assist sensor. You got me? So here it is in summary. It's your problem now, guys, not mine. It's three, buy a bike with a square taper bottom bracket. So, like I said, Decathlon £250 or Halford's £250. Two, another option is get a Hollowtech crankset like I did, but that cost £100 and I had to buy other things for it. I'll need to get a new front derailleur. And the bolt circle diameter, it has to have a ring on it, 64mm or 74mm. If it doesn't have that, it won't work, and that'll be like ring 20 teeth, 26 teeth. I think mine's is 30 teeth, but mine's is unusual. Or the other option is swap it for a square taper and crankset, and I think that's a very sensible option. One or three is the ones I would go for. Okay, so this is the great Hollowtech 2 pedal assist sensor problem that nobody talks about. There's no gap. You can't put it on the left. You can't put it on the left side, the non-drive side. You can't even put it on the drive side either, really. Well, you can, but it means you need to put a disc on your crankset. Alright, so it's 100 problems.